Our first speaker this evening does not really require an introduction at anything that happens at Holy Family. He is our own Monsignor James Halpine. What many of you probably know, and what I ask Monsignor to speak about this evening, he was raised, as you know, in Tulsa, but as a member of a neighboring parish. And so I ask him to reflect on Holy Family as he saw it as a child, looking at it from Immaculate Conception Parish, and then looking at it as he saw it as rector. That is what he was asked to do. What Monsignor will do is, of course, his own choice. Monsignor Halpine.
Yes.
Now be happy.
Now he knows that I hate giving talks. And as a dumb high schooler, when I thought, I'd like to be a priest, I never realized it'd be 50 years of giving talks every week. And when I'm called to do this kind of thing, I think, oh, well, anyway, it's a happy occasion, so. He said to make it fun and frothy. Now, do you know me as fun and froth? That'd be, moving. The only time I can get laughs is when I'm either pseudo-grouchy or really grouchy in the pulpit. And especially if I'm getting a rip-snorting sermon to get to confession. It's very odd, but that's when I get laughs.
A little bit about Hollywood.
And Hollywood, yes. Yes. Well, I didn't know how to get into this subject until I went out to, somehow I went out to the cathedral vestibule and I looked at the plaques on the walls there. That gave me some ideas. Now you're going to need to excuse me. I cannot read or do things from notes any longer. I've got to read it. And that's what you've got. And there are going to be a lot of self-references here, me, I, and so forth. And again, I didn't know how to get away from that, so you're going to have to endure that too. My family moved here from Findlay, Ohio in 27 when I was 11 months old. My father and his father before him worked in the oil fields in Ohio and in New York, western New York State when they first discovered oil, until the oil depression hit. One of them in his 26, I think oil was 10 cents a barrel. And he came out here to work with a private oil firm that was just about a block from our rectory. It's gone now. I think Sister Teresa's group has that property now, and the whole block for that insurance business. And our house was where Boston Avenue Methodist Church was being built in our little small backyard, and that big tower going up to however many floors. And I was 2 or 3 years old, and I can still hear my mother yelling, "You get down out of there!" And my dear sister Jane, who's, I can say your age, she's 85, she's happy about that. And she says, whenever I bring this up, she says, and you tell them I climbed all the way up to the top of that superstructure in those days. I remember the funeral mass of Pius XI that Bishop Kelly had, and I was a kid, I don't know how old, maybe 10 or 12. And I can still hear the old tubby organ that's up on the balcony playing the Chopin funeral march as the celebrants came down very solemnly, and I was on an end pew, at the end of the pew right there next to him, and I can remember the vestments going by, black with lots of metal gold on it, and I can remember the vestments rattling as I went by, and it kind of struck me as a kid to watch this and hear that old organ up there going, and thinking Pius XI is dead. It's very dramatic for a kid. I remember being confirmed there. I don't know if it was Bishop Kelly. He didn't like to confirm, and he might have gotten somebody else. I can't remember. Now we go back to the vestibule. When I looked at that vestibule, I realized I've known, to one degree or another, all the pastors of that cathedral except the founder, the first one. The others I've known to one degree or another. The first one was Father Charles Van Hulse. He had 2 brothers, priests from Belgium, and they served in Oklahoma. And he began the parish, but only stayed a year. And then his brother came. An interesting thing about him is at the time of the Second World War, after he'd been in the Holy Family some time, he'd left. He went back to Belgium and during the war in 1917. And he helped our side with being an aide to a military attaché in The Hague. Now I can tell Father Gear that I counted, and there are 6 monsignors and 5 reverends. So our side is winning. So there we are. And then I turned to the north side of the vestibule, the holy side where all the bishops' names are. And I realized I was involved with 7 of those 8. No, 8 of the 7. No, wait a minute. 7 of the 8, that's it. And I looked at the associates' plaques, and I was with 17 of them, counting Sister Eugenia. And I might say sometimes she worked harder than some of the others that I've been with. Most were men older than myself. 2 were very strong Jesuits. 5 died with me, and 1 or 2 were with me only a short while, for which they undoubtedly were grateful, and vice versa. Now I turn to the north wall with the bishops, and then I knew I'm jumping ahead of myself here. Now this would be interesting to Father Dorney, because at one time he was vocation director. And we look now just a glimpse at the laid-back church between the 2 world wars. I decided I was going to go to the seminary. And so Father McGurk, who was associate at Immaculate when I was a kid in high school, said, well, we'll go over to Oklahoma City and find out where you're going to the seminary. So he drove me over, and I sat in the car while he went in and saw Bishop Kelly. I was the last seminarian Bishop Kelly sent away. And I didn't meet him. And he came out, and he said, now we're going to go to Monsignor de Prater, who was pastor of the old cathedral downtown, the one that was right next to the Murrah building that was bombed. And I sat in the car there too, and never met him. And McGurk said, you're going to Cincinnati. And I said, oh, okay. So those were very laid-back times. And they had no fancy techniques for getting seminarians, and they didn't have many either. There were 12 of us for all of the state of Oklahoma when I entered. But that's all changed now. I'm sure it's well organized. And then go back to moving on to Father Donovan. Father Donovan was a former pastor of this cathedral, and he always hoped that his term would end without the great parishioner team of Claude Cleason. He wanted his term to end before they would stop working. Claude Cleason was an excellent maintenance man there. And Bessie Bash, who faithfully every Saturday for years worked by herself in getting the sacristy stuff ready for Sunday. And Father Donovan's prayer was answered. He left, they were still there. They were with me a short while, and then both of them had to quit. And it was not easy at that point when they weren't able to do. I went through some really strange maintenance people in that time. And also Father Donovan and Father White, he's here. They left a very beautiful choir, some parishioners, surprisingly a number of students from ORU. And the organist, he was from ORU, and he's very good. And it was doing well until he went off to the seminary. He didn't stay. In fact, I think he's dead now. But it just fell apart. And we had no one. We had very little income. And dear Bishop Beltran, I'm sure, well, I hope you don't remember it anymore, but you were patiently endured a number of years when we'd go out for Holy Week services, and I'd be the master of ceremonies, no server, Jim Foley, no choir. Is that me up there?
That's you. That's you over there. It's like a rock concert.
And we hired, cheaply, a guy to come and play the organ. Now this man was an Englishman installing a huge organ out at ORU, and he was glad to come. He didn't know anything about the Mass. He didn't know anything about Holy Week. And I can hardly remember how we did this, but I remember Father Byrne. Some of you remember Father Byrne. He's a great character. And he remarked after one of these services in Holy Week, he said, "Did you hear what he was doing?" And I said, "Well, it was a strange chant up in the balcony, kind of a wailing kind of a thing." I don't know what he was doing. That was Holy Week at Holy Family with the astonishingly patient Bishop Beltran. You really were. And then there's some wonderful, I'm getting to the end here. There were some wonderful old parishioners, and Harold and Tommy Welling, they had to go back, to move rather just recently to Denver to be with their grandson's family because they're old. And he's the only one left that I know of who actually worshipped in the original church, which is now where Channel 6 is, the block, the 3rd and Elgin in that block, that area. He's the only one I know of that's still living. And he would come up from Sapulpa or Jenks on the train with his family, his little kid, and they'd stay in a hotel room in one of the little hotels on 3rd Street that may be still there, and then go across to go to Mass. The school is doing very well, and obviously coming, and it's coming through a number, as it has come through a number of resurrections, that school, and it's quite alive at the moment, very good. And I also finally want to congratulate you, young man, for, I taught him in grade school, Father Doherty, in Oklahoma City, and this one was in another parish, but we were in the same parish at Christ the King. And I was a young priest. And your mother, your mother, yes. Oh, Father Gerlach, and I told him this once because he's a great singer, very beautiful voice, and good liturgical sense. Well, Mrs. Doherty and family, they lived in the village, I think, up near Christ the King, and little Bishop Father Halpine was forcing people to sing. This would be back in the 50s. Yes. And so oh God, what a memory. I would be doing this, and he told me what his mother would tell him. He said, "Oh my God, that Halpine's up there teaching him to sing. Let's go to the cathedral." Oh, and I could just imagine Mrs. Dorney saying that. Well, anyway, congratulations to you. This has been a marvelous observance of the 100th anniversary of this parish. Well done. A splendid year of it. And all I can say is thank God I didn't have to do it.
There are people standing.